Hi, this is Evelyn of the Modern Needle, and in anticipation of my Tetris pattern, which is a mitered square blanket release, I'm going to walk you through how I make the mitered squares. I believe that it's quite simple to do them this way. I've not seen anybody else do them that way. I don't think I came up with it, because nobody ever comes up with anything new. But I did think of it, and it kind of, it seems to work, so let's have a look. So for the mitered squares are actually blanket squares that you cast on one side, put in a marker that forms the corner, then you cast on the other side, and as you decrease, it will pull this together into a mitered square. So you're kind of working on a rectangle that gets pulled together. Some of the patterns that you can get have a rather distinct line, and some of them don't. For mine, I really didn't want to have a distinct line because I want to use it as a Tetris style. So I'm also a quilter, and I'm always fascinated by blankets that don't have the same block in it, that have tons of color and texture and all of that in it. So with the Tetris square blanket, it will really be hard to see after a while how did these squares go together. Like, how is it that you fit them together, which is something that I like. It gives the eye a visual interest. So here's one square, here's another big square, then the other square is sitting in here with two little ones on the top. So I'm not going to give you all of the numbers and everything for the Tetris itself, because I am releasing a pattern about it. However, I will show you how to make the mitered squares, and then you can just take it from there yourself. So basically the idea of the Tetris is that you have one block that fits into the next block, which would be this one here, into the next size block. So this is a fourth of this block, and this is a fourth of this huge block. So you can see that you can have a lot of fun with this. Now I'm going to show you the regular mitered squares and the formation and how to pick up your stitches. And if you ever get bored of the mitered squares, or you think, oh, this is a boring color, and you want to add a little bit of interest in it, there's always the option to add little eyelets, like yarn over eyelets in it. And even these, they don't need to be every row the same, the amount the same. You could put 4 here and 10 here, or you could make them exactly symmetrical. If that is easy, whatever you want to do is what you should do. So let's move this to the side a little bit. And oh, I did want to show you this square here as well, because this is a different, it's a fuzzy kind of mohair type of yarn that has lots of fuzz on it. I don't know if you can see it. So when you touch it texture really wise, it's also interesting. So not only are there interesting patterns in it, but I do want to change up the texture a little bit of this. So let's move this out of the way here for a second, and let's get started with what do we actually need. This is what we're aiming for, and I'm making the mini squares so that I can actually work one from beginning to end with you, and it doesn't take me all day to do it, because you really don't need to see me knit. But I'm kind of terrible at editing all of these things, so I just tend to upload them the way that they come up. But this is what we're going after. And then excuse me, you can attach them in a linear formation and then stack these rows on top of one another. Or if you do the Tetris, like this would be one block, then you can make one 4 times as big and stick it anywhere you want. Pick up stitches and make it bigger or even smaller than this. And what happens after is when you're finished, you're gonna, or any other knitter is gonna think, how did they put that together? Because you're actually not seaming anything with sewing. You're just knitting on. And you can mix and match your yarns. Obviously, I'm using a number 4 yarn, which is a worsted, and I'm using a 5mm needle. I'm using the short ones. When I knit my big one, I actually have my mindful needles with a cord, because it needs to be long enough to catch all of the stitches that you're using in it, because I'm making the really big blocks. But for these little ones, I do like to use short DPNs. These are 5-inch DPNs. This is also 5mm. These are 6-inch DPNs, and then of course I have longer ones, or you can use the 10-inch short, not DPNs, but I think they're called straight needles with just the stopper on the one end. They would work, and I do like using them because there's so many pretty ones around. Like, I just want to use them all, knitting with them all at the same time. Not that that works, but you can mix your fibers like we had discussed before in the last video. However, whatever the fussiest fiber, however you need to take care of the fussiest fiber on that, that's how the thing needs to be washed. And I believe at one point here I needed to see, because it feels kind of woolly, it doesn't really feel too acrylic-y. I wanted to see here. I wanted to see how much, or if there is acrylic in this. So I did the burn test, and as you can see, it beaded quite a bit. So there's more acrylic in here than anything else, which is fine. That end will be cut off. But this is how I know that this is more acrylic than anything else. So for this project, this is what I wanted to use. Like I said before, every fiber has its place. So this is what we're after. And as you can see, it forms this distinctive. So when we're knitting it, this will be stretched out flat until we do the decreases, and that pulls it together. So we start from the bottom, which is this. It has many stitches, and we're gonna decrease right up to the top. And then I like to put stitch markers in it, which are these little light bulb stitch markers. So that might be something that you want to have or already have. But to be honest with you, this is not my favorite. I more use them for because I also make knitting notions, like knitting bags and yarn pots and things like that. I often use them for the zipper pulls because what I like is, I like very inexpensive bobby pins as for these markers, because they do slide in and out. Nothing ever gets caught on them, and they don't disturb the fabric. And I don't really need to stop and undo it and whatever, and it'll stay in here until I take this out, which is just like this. So I do like that. And my stitch markers, as usual, are little baby hair elastics. I don't like the I don't like metal for the stitch markers because I can't get in them and move them around the stitch. I have to stop my work. And here I can just move everything with my needle, which I really like. And then of course, when you put your work down, you can get these very inexpensive elastics. I believe you can get them at Michael's or any craft and hobby store, or if the kids have retainer elastics laying around, you can get these to wind around your needle to put down your work, and that acts like a brake pad and nothing falls off. So we're knitting with 2 needles, whether you knit with a cabled needle that is attached or not. We just need 2 of them. If they have a cable on them, we are using them as straight needles, so we're knitting back and forth. We're not knitting in the round. And what I also like to use is a thinner sock needle. Now this here is a rather long one. I believe I probably have a smaller one stuck in here. Yes, I do. 2.25 millimeter. That's a smaller one here that I can use, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But for right now, what we need is this, some sort of a marker, and if you don't have bobby pins or a paper clip, I don't like the paper clips too much because they have a rough edge on the end, and when you try to pull them out, sometimes that gets caught on the yarn and makes a bit of a mess. And a stitch marker. These 2 actually can be replaced by yarn loops that you're just going to tie a knot in here, cut it off, and then you have a stitch marker. That is fine. Use whatever you got. So in this sample here, I cast on 20 stitches. 10 are here, then I insert the marker, and 10 are up here. So whatever is on the right and on the left side of the marker, one of them is a vertical line and the other one is the horizontal line. So let's get going on this. And the way that I like to cast on, and I have a big yarn cake here. Whoops. I believe it's, what is it? It's not a Red Heart. It's a Dynasty Cake Twist by, who is it by? Called Amethyst Clouds. I don't know. I believe I bought it at Michael's. I like the Red Heart ones. There is actually a Red Heart yarn cake that does have 20% wool in it, which is really pretty. And the only thing that you might want to have a look at is that the color, like this here, is a really long purple, so I would probably break that up, or depending on what it is. But anyways, let's get started here. I usually start with a slip knot, which is the letter E. Drag it over the tail and pick it up. There we go. I don't use the slip knot, but it anchors my cast on. So hold your yarn, bring it around the thumb from the outside to the inside, cross it over, and run the needle up the thumb, and that is my first loop. So it's 1, 2, and don't make them too tight. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I will use my stitch marker. So I went from here to here. Now I'm going to do this side here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And before I go any further, I'll just pull this apart here, and I'll use my bobby pin, and I'll insert it right under this marker here. So in essence, I marked 2 spots. I'm marking my middle on the needle, and I'm actually marking the middle on the bottom. This marker does not move with me. This one here does, because it's on the needle. So when I'm finished, I will have one marker that stays in here, and when I want to pick up my stitches, it'll tell me that this is the middle of my corner here and this is the middle of the top corner. So I'm just going to knit. Every row is the same. We are going to knit until 2 stitches before the marker. We're going to knit these 2 together, knit to the last stitch, which is this guy here, because we're going to drop off that slip knot. I don't want it. And you can start with a slip knot and keep it on. For myself, if I feel a knot in any of my work, I'll worry it until I put a hole in the thing. I just can't even help myself. So I avoid that, but you do you. So we'll knit to the last stitch here, and we're going to slip that stitch with a yarn in the back. Let's get going on this. Make sure we have enough yarn to go with it. Is this a number 5? And so it is. So we'll knit number 1. Okay, and I knit continental, but in reality that does not matter. You can knit any way you want. I'm not very good at knitting the English way or as a thrower. I never really mastered that. I can do a couple of stitches, but it's very awkward for me. So if you would need me to teach, to show it to you in the throwing matter, I guess it would be, okay, so you pick up your stitches this way, wrap your yarn, and bring it through. Okay, that's it for that demonstration at the moment. We're at 2 stitches off the middle, and actually I just noticed that I don't have the slide on here, so that might work a little bit better. What do you think? So we're knitting these together. If you have a hard time getting in them, you can loosen them from the front and just put your thumb there to stop them from slipping back together, and you can go ahead and knit them together. Rock your needle a little bit to remove the slack, because every time you do that, you decrease and you knit together, you end up having a little bit of extra slack from one stitch to the next. So I just like to tighten that up so I don't have any gaping holes. And we're just going to knit right to the last stitch, and we're going to slip that with the yarn in back. The first row is always a little bit fiddly. So let's see. And I'm splitting that yarn a little bit. Okay. Do it again without splitting the yarn. There we go. Yeah, here we go. No, actually, still a bit buggered up. Okay. Sorry, I lost that cast on, so I will repeat it. There we go. Slip this back on. Okay. I really didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. So this here is my last stitch. I'm going to slip it with the yarn in the back, and this is a slip knot. I'll undo it now. So what I would like to do is, the yarn is in the back, and I'm just going to turn my work. As I turn my work, the yarn, which was in the back now, is in the front, and it gets wrapped right around this first stitch. So I'm just going to leave it like this. This is what I want, and I'm going to knit my first stitch, having that yarn wrapped around, and I'm going to knit to 2 stitches before the middle stitch and knit them together. I started off with 10 on each side of the stitch marker. This is technically row number 2 because the first one was the cast on row. I will have 9 stitches on each side of the marker. We can double check that, but it should be that. So to the last stitch and lift it with the yarn in back. I'm going to turn my work. If you turn it the other way, it doesn't matter, as long as you get this wrap. This is what we're after. Okay, and I'm just going to knit my first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now we're going to reduce it to 8. So every second row you're catching up, but you don't need to remember if you're in the first row or in the 5th row or whatever. Every row gets knitted the same. You don't need to pay attention to anything else. And every second row catches up. So here is my yarn in the back. I'm just going to slip this stitch and turn my work. And with this yarn here, it does have a few beautiful colorful flecks in it. You will be able to see how the color changes work, and I think that's why I love making the mitered squares. They're really not boring to me, even though they're just knits. Lift it with the last stitch, yarn in the back. I'll just turn it, and as you can see, I don't really ever have to stop my work in between. Because of the elastic marker that I'm using, I can just lift it. Just don't forget to rock your needle in between there. And I find that I've been doing this for such a long time that it is almost automatic that I do it. I don't even pay attention to it. And I lift it with the yarn in back and just turn your work. And you can already see that I'm getting a little point here. It is drawing together, and as I move up, you can see that even better. So take my eye off the ball for 2 seconds. And our square is already halfway done, so you can see it does not take very long to knit up one of these squares. Now, granted, this is a small square, but they really are fun. And you can make this with any yarn weight. So if you want to do the sock weight, you just need more stitches to get a square going. Otherwise, you have like really micro squares. However, that doesn't matter. You can stripe these if this is what you want. You can actually, if you don't mind knots in your work, you can knot together a ball of magic. You can make a magic ball with a magic knot and wind up a ball and just keep knitting, and whatever colors come up, that's what you have. Or of course you can do a controlled color palette. That is completely up to you, whatever it is that you would like. And I will show you a little bit once the square is finished. Knit those two together. We're going to do this until we have 4 stitches left on the needle. And I should have gotten out my scale, which I put away again, but that's okay. So when the square is finished, your first square, you can weigh it. And then you can see, oh, this square, I'm making it up, weighs 20 grams. And then you know that if you have 20 grams of something, you can make one square or two 10 grams or 5 and 15, whatever way that you want to do it. And if you make it really scrappy, that actually doesn't matter. But what you can do is, if I know that I want to have 5 squares by 12 squares or whatever it is, you can multiply it by your square to see how much yarn you need for the whole blanket. Or when you get to the border and you think, well, normally the border is just one square width going around. So if you know that you need 50 squares, then you know that 20 times 50, this is how many grams you need. So it is handy to know the weight. And very often I don't really keep a very good record of what colors do I put where and what yarn do I use, because I'll use mainly scraps, but then if I think, oh, I need a red or a green, I might go out and buy those just for the blanket. I always think more is more. I agree with Dolly Parton, more is more. So I'm at 3 on this side and 4 on this. So we're almost finished this little square here. So anyways, some people might be more doggedly in the documentation, which might be neat. I mean, I'll remember, oh, I use this for that. I use this for that. Sometimes I have no idea. That's the nature of the beast, I think, and I'm not too concerned about that. So for me, the fun is always the knitting. And of course, if I want to make something and I think I can make it easier for others, then pattern writing. And once I have that idea in my head, until it's out on paper and completely done and I have nothing more to add, it stays in my brain. So now I have 4 stitches left. I have 2 on either side of my marker. We will knit these 2 together. Get rid of the marker. And I'll knit these 2 together. Get a bit swollen and stiff ends today. And now I will just cast that off. There we go. And with all my scissors, oh, I do have one here. And I can either now put in a bobby pin or I can pull it through, whichever I choose. I have the bobby pin here, so that's how I'll use it. This is it. So this here is the first square. We started off flat and we pulled it up. This here is the diagonal line. So the corner to the tip always tells you how that diagonal line goes. For the Tetris blanket, I did not pay attention to the diagonal line. Here, if you want to have it linear, like you make your blocks this way and then stack another row and stack another row, that is completely up to you. But for the Tetris blanket, I did not concern myself with the diagonal line simply because it's easier if you don't. If you do a diagonal, it's easier to keep the line in check. But when you have a square, and this is going to be our next step now, and you can see what happens when you don't put a little tag on there telling you what you knitted with what. So this is a 5, and I bet you I knitted this with a 6.5, which is fine. So you can knit in rows, you can knit on in rows, or when you have your square here, you can attach the new row here. You can attach the new row here. You can attach the new row here. And this actually needs to come up here, this way. So you can see that you have options. I can pick up and put my next square here, 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 or here. Now for the first square, this hardly matters because in any way you're going to start off with 2 squares side by side. However, once you have your second square, let's replace that with square number 2. My options are I can pick up this way, and I can pick up over here, over here, over here, over here. So you can see you can go in any direction. Or, of course, you can stay row by row. So this is the fun of the Tetris, and that's why I didn't bother with figuring out where the line goes. But I will show you what I'm talking about here. So the other thing that we need to talk about is this is garter stitch, and garter stitch is just knitting knits. You turn it around and you knit knits again. But in the first row, when you attach the new yarn, a knit is a purl on the back, and the purls look like this when you connect in the yarn. There is no way around that. That is the nature of the beast, and you can't get away from that. So you will have a clean looking side in the front, and in the back you have this. If you want to have a completely reversible blanket, you would completely mix this up. Some of them go this way, some of them are clean. And if you have on your blanket, if you have some multi yarns that are marled or whatever, sorry for shaking the tripod here, you can see that it kind of looks like this anyways, and it doesn't really matter. Again, I'm on the wool mat, and you should think I learned that I pick up hairs on that. I don't even have a pet anymore. So, my hair. Anyways, so you can see that you do have that here. And I try to keep the front side clean though. But then when I changed colors here from blue to the purple, I did not pay attention. So now all of a sudden I have a clean side on the wrong side. But that I will not fix. If this would have been something different, I would have fixed it. But in reality, when I look at this, it'll make me chuckle every time, and I'll think, yeah, that's what happens. So I'm not going to worry about this. So the next step is, how do we pick up, excuse me, how do we pick up these stitches here? So now I have 2 little boxes, and if you think, I don't like mitered squares, this is it. This is the only square I'm going to do. Okay, that's fine. You have a little coaster. you can leave it, or you can, if you think, oh, I like this, but if you knit on all the time, it comes to a point where it's not so portable and you love knitting them. You can knit them and you can make 4 or 6 and make them as a gift and give them as coasters to your friends or loved ones or whatever you like. And if you have 4 or 6, that can become a pillow or a table runner or a placemat, or the choices are never ending. And of course, they're yours. So how do you actually attach the new block? And as you can see, it really doesn't have a true front or a true back. The only reason that you know what the front is, we knitted the first row. So the pickup row is usually from the back, and our first row that we knit starts like this. So you can see that there is a bit of a space because of that first knit row. On the back, the purls will go right to the edge. That's your back. But in reality, this does not matter for our purposes. Now, I had asked you to wrap the yarn around from the back to the front, or the front to the back, so that we have this little knotted edge. In Germany, where I learned how to knit, we call this a Knötchenrand. So it's an edge with little knots. And of course, they're not really true knots, but they are little wraps. So in order to pick up the stitches, this is very easy. If you have a thinner needle, and I would propose you use a thinner needle, you just slide it through all of your edge stitches here, and it's very easy. There you go. These are your new stitches. And there should be 10 of them. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Which is what we have on either side of the marker. So, but I need 20 stitches, so 10 are only half. So I can either if my cast on is here, if I cast on new stitches and I use these stitches, my box will sit like this. So this line goes like this and the next line goes like this. If I use this side here, this is split stitch right on the very end. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. If I use these stitches here, where before I use these ones, then my pickups are here and I cast on here. My diagonal line will go like this. And I recommend that you make yourself a little square with a line, and on one you say pick up and then on the other one you say cast on, so that you can lay it here. So if it is important to you which way the line goes, but even to figure out like what is my cast on line, because the mitered squares have 2 parts on the cast on. Each one is a wall of your box. So you have a side box, a side wall, and another side wall. So if I cast on first, the side walls go like this. If I take these pickup stitches and then cast on, my side wall goes like this. And if you have one of these little guys here, it'll help you figure it out. So this is very easy to pick up, and you pick up and knit them through the back loop. However, this edge knot here is very easy to stretch out, and you actually don't want to do that. This is why I recommend like you have a tinier needle to help you do that. And actually you can use that for sock. You can use this edge pickup for sock knitting or anything you want to do. If I want to pick up over here, or over here, I can do it this way or pick up this way. I just go into my previous stitch or cast on, and I can just pick it up like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. These are my stitches right here, and this is how I knit. And again, I knit it through the back loop. And because I'm only picking up the one stitch, because I use the backwards loop cast on, I only have like one loop down here. There's no thick ridge to pick up. Like on this side here, there is no ridge, none. And because we picked it up out of the knot, the pearls look very clean and nice. And you can pick it up on either side. So be careful that you don't stretch out your cast ons. So very often what I do is when I want to cast on, and I'm not going to use this one here, for example, I'm going to use this one, this yarn and this sample, just because it came out a little bit bigger and you can see it better on camera. So let's say I want to pick up like this and I want to have everything going in the same direction, right? Slip knot. I don't need a long tail. E and pull it over. I hang on to both sides of it. Pick it up. Okay. And I cast on my 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Marker. And now I will no longer need the bottom marker because I'm joining it to this side here. I will see it. So the only time that you actually cast on truly flat is the very first time. So actually, let's pull this through here. So, and I just go in like this because I really don't want to stretch it out. So 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. I always use my hands as a tool. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I find, once I have this up here, it will pull it right to the edge here, but I don't really want to have a hole in here. So I might do, I might pick up an extra one and cast it right off in the next round. So I have an extra one here to go right to the edge, so I'll just knit those two together to get rid of them. I don't actually think it matters because I've not had to do that before. I just, when I look at it this close, sometimes it looks like it could be an issue. Okay, so here is, I knit my 2 together before the marker. Rock my needle, move the marker, and now I knit my other 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and pop this off. I don't need it. I've wrapped the yarn from the back to the front. Actually, I didn't really want to knit this last stitch, sorry about that. I'll lift it with a yarn in the front, in the back. Wrap it, and you're back on the way to knit the other square, and that is actually how simple this is. To pick up your joints like that is good for sock knitting when you have a sock flap, or when you have a cardigan and you have to pick up this huge button band. And it works because you're only picking up every second row. So you don't need to have the slip stitch or whatever. You still do the slip stitch, but the knot keeps the slip stitch from bagging out. And it is not as, if you pick up in between the stitches, the transition is not as clean as that. So I did my second row, so now I'm on the back here, where you can see I have the bumps with the collar, where this is a clean knit on edge, and it'll work for all of that. And this is how easy it is. So because the middle is here and the point will be up here, this middle line will go this way and this middle line will go this way, because my point will end up here. It won't end up over here. So let me see. Or is it? Yeah, no, it'll end up on the opposite side, because you always knit to the opposite corner. So if the marker is here, the point will be up here, your diagonal line will be here. So this is that. This is how easy this is to pick up. If you have any of these thinner elastics, when you put your work down, you can just actually pull it, and it'll act like a brake pad, and it'll not come off until you're ready to do your next one. If you ever lose any of these, you can buy like 100 in a package for a few dollars, so this is not an issue. I hope that this helped and simplified it a little bit. But the patchwork, there is a little bit more to it, because you can do the boxes within the boxes. And I put the information all in the pattern, and I'm really hoping to release the pattern within the next 3 weeks. But for right now, this is how you can knit my mitered square. So I hope this was informative for you, and I wish you happy knitting. Have a great day, and let me know if this was of any use. Give me a like and a subscribe, and we'll talk next time. Until then, happy knitting.